hate that zero waste. You know, what is zero? So we're going to talk about things that are not zero. We're going to talk about positive. First, I'm going to talk about the first time I was ever in Havre. It was a very eventful day because I jumped from a train. It was leaving the station. Not only did I jump from the train, but I also had my 2 children with me, and I got them to jump with me. Now, you can imagine that the people in the train station in Havre were not too excited to see a young woman and 2 children jumping from the train, but I had to jump from the train. My husband was changing dollars into francs. That was 20 years ago, and he wasn't back. And we didn't have our passports, and we didn't have our money, and we didn't have our dad. So we had to jump from the train. No sooner did we jump from the train than the train stopped, and we all got back on the train, and we got, safely to Paris. Now, I learned some valuable lessons that day. 1, don't mess with the French train personnel. 2, have everything you need before you get on the train. And 3, young children will do just about anything their mother tells them to do. What does that have to do with today? Well, first of all, we're all going to go on this journey. We're starting a journey of the positive economy. But the other thing I was thinking about is this whole sense of urgency that I'm feeling today, that we need to do something now, something different than what we've done before. And I think my children jumped with me from that train because they could tell that Mom was saying, we got to get off. Got to get off now. Got to be with Dad. And that sense of urgency starts to say we have to do things differently. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how we're going to do things just a bit differently. Now, today I run, I don't run that. I do this. I'm the head of the Cradle Products Innovation Institute. And I started doing this because I could see all around me how things weren't working. I was working for Governor Schwarzenegger, and I was one of the California's biggest regulators. I oversaw mining, oil, gas industries, but I also ran the country's largest recycling program. We were recycling 16 billion containers a year. But what I realized is we were sitting at the end of the pipe as a regulatory community and trying to figure out how to solve problems at the end. And I knew that we had to do things differently, because here's where we were. More regulations, more environmental destruction, and really no more answers. In California, we had a goal of 50% waste diversion. We were still creating waste, and I knew we weren't going to get where we needed to go. Did you know 80% of what we wear ends up in landfills? That's not an answer. And yet I also was seeing in California how consumers are really concerned about what's in my product and how is it made. And I knew that if we could just work up with business, we'd be able to come up with solutions, and that would be the place to go. My 5 years with the governor convinced me that government's not the answer. And when I see pictures like this, I just get sad. Something's wrong. What's going on? When the American astronauts came back from their first trip to the moon, they were asked, were you on course the whole time? Their answer, interestingly enough, was, we were never on course, but we knew where we were going. So the question today is, where are we going? And I want to give you a solution. Back in the 60s, we started talking about what was wrong, limits to growth, Rachel Carson, all these things came out sort of talking about the problem. But then as we moved into the next century, we actually started coming up with ideas that were solutions, Hanover principles, biomimicry, and where my inspiration came from, cradle to cradle, remaking the way we make things. Okay, who's read the book? Who's heard Bill and Michael talk? Handful of you? So we're going to have to talk a little bit about cradle to cradle, because it's all the way, when you talk about cradle to cradle, it's all the way from the molecule to the region. It's a book, it's a philosophy, but it's also about imagining a world where everything just gets better. So I'm going to ask you guys for a minute, everybody kind of close their eyes. We're all just going to close our eyes for a minute. And we're going to start to imagine everything in the world is going around. The chairs you're sitting in, the carpet, the ceiling tiles, the drapes, the equipment is either being designed for recycling or composting. And then in another minute, think about everything being made with clean, renewable energy, clean water, and everyone's getting paid and treated fairly. And that's the cradle to cradle way. And that's what I became so excited about Cradle to Cradle, because it talks about these two cycles. One's this great, amazing technical cycle where we take cars and we redo them and we turn them into new cars, or we take a television set or a toaster or a piece of carpet and turn it into that next piece of carpet, or maybe that toaster becomes a children's bat or a computer. And then there's this other cycle where everything's made to be composted. And in that cycle, we don't have anything that can't go back safely to soil. Maybe it's my jacket, because all of these dyes have been made so that they're safe. So when this jacket starts to disappear, it makes soil, and that soil grows cotton, and this jacket becomes back again. So now you can kind of see that sort of inspirational part of Cradle to Cradle. And it's not just a vision. It is a program that we run in San Francisco. We have an office in Amsterdam. And it is a path that more than 200 companies have been on for the last 5 years. And it's easy. You don't have to reinvent it. Lots of companies have done it, and here's how you get started. You figure out what's in your product, down to the parts per million. You figure out how it's being made. How much energy am I using? How much water? Can I get this? Am I paying everybody fairly? I do this big product screen, and I figure out, what's in there that I need to get rid of? The bad stuff. Am I making something with materials that can cause cancer or birth defects? I don't want that. And after I've done all this and I do this inventory, I make an action plan. I figure out what I want to do, what I want to get rid of, and how I want to make things better. And then you send your report to the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute, and we're going to give you a certification. You're going to put this certification mark on your product, because you're going to be able to tell the world that you've done some pretty hard work. And this is where the fun starts for all these companies to be involved with this. They really start this innovation engine when they really start looking at their products and say, oh, why am I using that material? That causes cancer. Oh, that's bad for fish. Holy moly, when people make it, it gets into their lungs. I don't want that. And that innovation engine starts to drive your whole company. Start thinking about, where is my product going at end of use? Not end of life, end of use. And had I make my product not reduce my greenhouse gases, I'm committing to 100% renewable energy, a cleanly powered world. And I'm not just talking about less water, I'm talking about clean water on the way out of the factory. Clean water on the way out of the factory. Imagine the river in China where they say you can tell what next year's fashions are going to be because of the color of the river. In 10 years' time, we could clean that up, because every time a pair of jeans got made, the water got cleaner and it just went back in, and it's happening right now. And that's the positive path we're talking about. And it's not just about all of that, but it's also about the people that make our stuff and making sure that they're treated fairly and honestly, so that when the things we get, we can feel good about them. Here's a scorecard that appears on our website, and it sort of shows the journey. This is AGC Glass, the largest commercial glass manufacturer in the world, and they are being very transparent about their path all the way up to the platinum. In each stage, the requirements get harder. So at the lower stages, what am I? What's in my product? What's my energy? What's my water? And at the higher stages, I've actually have products that are all safe and healthy materials designed for compost or reuse. And I've actually designed take-back systems. Here's Ecover. Their journey was about making safe, cleaning ingredients. But they went another step. They wanted to make the world better. They're taking marine plastic and turning it into a bottle. In the same way that Shaw, a $4 billion carpet company, got on the certification path 6 years ago, their sales have increased 340%. France is going to be the headquarters of a very important climate meeting in a couple of months. And a lot of the news out there is bad. But here's something that's not being reported. Around the world, hundreds of companies are remaking the way they make things. They've committed to taking toxins out of their products, making them with renewable energy, paying everybody a fair wage, making sure that the world gets better through every production cycle. That's something that's really worth talking about. Look, 20 years ago, if I'd had this in my hand, I wouldn't have to risk my children's lives and my life by jumping off a moving train. And if I told you that you would be holding a computer the size of a deck of cards in your hand, that it would also be a phone and a camera, you wouldn't have believed me. What I'm telling you today is the mainframe for the positive economy has already been built. It's a certification program that's being implemented by 200 companies around the world. And in 20 years, you and I are going to stand here, and this presentation might be a hologram or something like that, and you're going to look back and you're going to say, you know what? She was right. We can do it. We can start it now in Le Havre. We can start the positive economy, and nobody can stop us. Let's don't jump from the train. Let's just get on it and keep going. Thank you very much.